There was a time when kindness was seen as a virtue, a time when men who listened, cared, and stood by their partners were considered the foundation of love. But now the world has changed, and in this new world, even the nice guys, the ones who once held doors open, who texted back, who forgave without hesitation, are choosing to walk away. But why? Because even kindness has its limits. Because a person who gives endlessly without being appreciated eventually runs out of reasons to stay. Kindness, once considered the foundation of strong relationships, has undergone a dramatic transformation in its meaning and perception. It was once admired, a quality that made people feel safe, valued, and appreciated. But in today's world, kindness is often misunderstood, even seen as a weakness rather than a strength. The very essence of being kind, being patient, understanding, and giving has been taken for granted, leading many to question its worth. In the past, kindness was synonymous with integrity, with standing by someone through thick and thin, with making sacrifices to nurture relationships. It was about selflessness, about putting the needs of others before one's own. But today, this very quality is being overlooked, misjudged, and at times even exploited. Those who are genuinely kind often find themselves in situations where their efforts are not reciprocated. Their patience is tested, their loyalty is questioned, and their giving nature is mistaken for an invitation to be used. They are labeled as too nice, as if kindness itself is a flaw that diminishes their worth. In a world that glorifies detachment, emotional unavailability, and self-interest, kindness is no longer the trait people seek first in a partner. Instead, excitement, unpredictability, and even a sense of challenge are often priority. People who lead with kindness sometimes find themselves left behind, struggling to understand why their genuine nature is not enough. They give without expecting much in return. They forgive when others would walk away, and they believe in love that is built on trust rather than games. Yet over time, many of them come to realize that their kindness is not always valued. It is often assumed, taken as a given, and at times even manipulated. This shift in perception has led to a silent but powerful transformation. The people who were once endlessly kind, who believed that their goodness would be enough, are now choosing differently. They are redefining what it means to be kind, not as an act of sacrificing their own happiness, but as a way of respecting themselves. They are learning that kindness should not come at the cost of self-worth, that patience should not mean tolerating disrespect, and that love should not feel like a one-sided effort. They are no longer proving their worth through how much they endure, but by how much they value themselves. Kindness is not disappearing, it is simply evolving. For years, sacrifice has been seen as a noble act, especially in relationships. People often believed that to love deeply, you had to give up pieces of yourself, your time, your energy, your happiness, for the sake of others. This idea was so ingrained in society that many saw self-sacrifice as a measure of how much you cared for someone. However, in today's world, more and more individuals are learning that true love and respect begin with self-worth, not self-sacrifice. Self-worth is the understanding and appreciation of one's value, independent of external validation. It's about recognizing that you deserve love, respect, and care without needing to prove it through constant sacrifices. In the past, many people, especially those with kind and nurturing tendencies, believed that showing their love meant putting themselves last. They endured hardships, overlooked red flags, and accepted less than they deserved, all in the name of love and devotion. But what they didn't realize was that their constant giving, their endless sacrifices were not acts of love, they were acts of self-neglect. Today, the narrative is changing. People are waking up to the fact that sacrificing their happiness, peace, and well-being for someone else is not a sign of love. It's a sign of insecurity. When you give up too much of yourself, you risk losing the very essence of who you are. True love, respect, and partnership are built on a foundation of mutual respect, not one-sided sacrifice. The rise of self-worth over sacrifice is not about becoming selfish or cold-hearted. It's about knowing your value and understanding that your needs are just as important as anyone else's. This shift has led to a growing movement where people are taking the time to nurture their own dreams, interests, and mental health. Instead of losing themselves in a relationship, they are learning to maintain their identity and prioritize their happiness. This doesn't mean walking away from love or relationships altogether, but rather ensuring that love does not come at the expense of self-respect. It's about creating boundaries that protect personal peace and rejecting the idea that love means giving up everything for someone else. As people embrace their self-worth, they are realizing that only by valuing themselves first can they truly offer the best of themselves to others. Emotional exhaustion is a silent killer of relationships. It begins subtly with small moments where kindness is ignored or taken for granted. At first, it feels like an occasional misunderstanding, a simple miscommunication, but over time, these moments accumulate, and what was once an act of love or care starts to feel like a burden. The kindest souls, those who would give anything to make someone happy, start to feel drained and empty as their kindness is overlooked or exploited. This emotional exhaustion is not always visible on the surface. The kind person may still smile, still offer help, still try to be there for others, but deep down, they are beginning to feel the weight of their efforts. The constant giving without receiving, the endless patience with no acknowledgement, the sacrifices that are never returned. It wears them down piece by piece. When their kindness is taken for granted or used as a tool to manipulate, the initial warmth they felt fades into a sense of emptiness. What happens when emotional exhaustion sets in is that it creates a disconnection. It's not just a physical distance, but an emotional one. The kind person begins to pull away, not out of malice, but out of a desperate need to protect their own well-being. They start to question their worth, wondering why their efforts are never enough, why their care is ignored, and why they are always expected to give more while receiving little in return. Over time, this disconnection grows, and they learn that the only way to preserve themselves is to let go. Even the kindest souls, those who once believed in the power of unconditional love, eventually learn to walk away. They learn that constantly giving without being valued or respected is not sustainable. They realize that emotional exhaustion is a signal that something needs to change, not just in the relationship, but in how they view themselves. The constant depletion of their emotional reserves cannot continue without consequences. It's not a choice they make lightly, but one born out of necessity. The painful truth is that when kindness is continuously overlooked or exploited, it loses its meaning. It stops being an act of love and starts becoming a burden. The kindest individuals, instead of continuing to pour from an empty cup, choose to refill it by stepping away from situations that drain them, preserving their emotional health, and learning to set boundaries that protect their well-being. This disconnection is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of growth, of learning the importance of self-preservation in the face of emotional exhaustion. Accountability in relationships is the cornerstone of trust, growth, and mutual respect. It's not just about holding someone else responsible for their actions. It's about taking ownership of your own behavior, words, and emotions. In any healthy relationship, both parties must be willing to stand by their actions, acknowledge their mistakes, and make efforts to improve. Without accountability, relationships become fragile, built on shaky ground that can easily crumble under the weight of misunderstandings and unmet expectations. In many relationships, especially those where one person constantly gives and the other takes, accountability can be a rare quality. Often, one partner may not take responsibility for their actions or how those actions affect the other. Instead of owning up to their mistakes, they might deflect, justify, or even manipulate the situation to avoid facing the consequences of their behavior. This lack of accountability creates resentment, as the person who is always held accountable for their actions feels trapped, unheard, and undervalued. True accountability is about creating an open line of communication where both partners are willing to express their feelings, apologize when necessary, and work together to address any issues that arise. It's not about assigning blame, but about finding solutions and understanding each other's needs. When both people hold themselves accountable, they create a safe space for honesty and vulnerability. This type of relationship allows room for growth, as both individuals are encouraged to learn from their mistakes and continuously improve their understanding of one another. When accountability is absent, it can lead to emotional neglect, where one person feels as though their efforts are invisible, their emotions invalidated. They begin to feel as though they are constantly walking on eggshells, trying to please someone who isn't willing to meet them halfway. This one-sided effort can lead to frustration, bitterness, and eventually disconnection. The person who is held accountable for everything begins to question their worth, wondering if their actions will ever be seen or appreciated. Accountability is the foundation of a balanced, healthy relationship. It fosters mutual respect, encourages emotional growth, and ensures that both partners are invested in making the relationship work. Without it, relationships become transactional and superficial, built on a foundation of unmet needs and unspoken resentments. The concept of self-love has evolved significantly in recent years. Once viewed as selfish or indulgent, it is now recognized as an essential foundation for mental, emotional, and even physical well-being. In the past, many people, especially those in relationships, believed that love had to come from others for them to feel complete. They sought validation and affection from external sources, often compromising their own needs and desires in the process. However, as awareness about mental health and personal growth has increased, more and more individuals are beginning to realize that the key to any fulfilling relationship, whether with others or with oneself, starts with self-love. Self-love is about more than just pampering oneself or indulging in fleeting pleasures. It's about deeply valuing who you are, acknowledging your worth, and treating yourself with the same kindness, respect, and compassion that you would show a loved one. It's about setting boundaries that protect your peace, honoring your needs, and not compromising your happiness for anyone or anything. In a world where people often feel pressured to be everything to everyone, self-love has become an act of resistance, a way to reclaim one's identity and protect personal happiness. For many, embracing self-love means learning to say no to things that drain them and saying yes to things that nourish their soul. It's about understanding that self-care isn't just a luxury, but a necessity. Taking time to rest, reflecting on your personal goals, and nurturing your body and mind are all essential parts of building a healthy relationship with yourself. The more an individual practices self-love, the more they are able to offer love to others, not out of obligation or need, but from a place of abundance and genuine care. This shift towards self-love has also brought about a new way of viewing relationships. It's no longer about finding someone to complete you or define your worth. Instead, people are learning that relationships thrive when both individuals bring their best selves to the table, confident in their own value and capable of supporting each other's growth. In a sense, self-love has become the ultimate act of empowerment, allowing individuals to step into their own power, live authentically, and build relationships based on mutual respect and shared growth. In today's world, there seems to be a constant push for extremes. Either you're all in or you're all out, giving everything or walking away entirely. This black and white approach has crept into nearly every aspect of life, including relationships, work, and self-identity. People are either chasing perfection or resigning themselves to mediocrity, believing that success, love, or happiness comes from an all or nothing mindset. But the truth is, balance is the key to lasting fulfillment and peace. It is not about choosing one side over the other, but learning how to integrate both extremes into a harmonious whole. When it comes to relationships, for example, balance is often overlooked. People either pour everything into their partner, expecting them to be their sole source of happiness, or they become emotionally distant, afraid of being vulnerable and dependent. In reality, a healthy relationship requires both individuals to bring their own happiness, self-worth, and emotional stability into the partnership. It's about mutual support, not dependency, and about learning when to give and when to receive. Relationships thrive when both parties are balanced, when they care for each other without losing sight of who they are as individuals. Balance is also crucial in how we approach personal growth and self-improvement. The constant pressure to be better, faster, and more successful can leave people feeling overwhelmed and burnt out. There is a fine line between striving for greatness and pushing yourself beyond your limits. In this pursuit, balance means taking care of your mental and physical health while working towards your goals. It means celebrating progress without beating yourself up for perceived shortcomings. Achieving success doesn't require sacrificing every other part of your life. It's about learning to prioritize what truly matters and not neglecting the things that bring you joy and fulfillment outside of your achievements. Balance is essential in how we treat others. It's about being kind without being a doormat, offering love without expecting perfection. A relationship or friendship shouldn't be a one-sided effort, but a space where both people can give and take in equal measure. Striking this balance requires understanding that no one is perfect and that true connection happens when we accept each other's flaws while also holding each other accountable for personal growth. In every aspect of life, balance is the foundation of a fulfilling and sustainable existence. It's about finding harmony between work and rest, ambition. It's not about extremes, it's about embracing the ebb and flow of life and learning how to thrive in the middle. Ultimately, balance is the key that unlocks a life of peace, growth, and meaningful connection. It is about embracing the middle ground where we can give of ourselves without losing who we are, where we can chase our dreams while still nurturing our well-being, and where we can love deeply without sacrificing our own worth. The journey to balance isn't always easy, but it is the path that leads to fulfillment, harmony, and the kind of life that honors both our own needs and those of the people we care about. It's time to stop searching for extremes and start living with a sense of balance that nurtures every part of who we are.